Hey everybody, welcome to Wither and Bloom Studios, where we are here to play Daggerheart, and I'm really excited about that. Are you guys ready to play Daggerheart?
Woo! So hype.
So we want to put a few things out there. First of all, if this is your first time to any one of our Daggerheart videos in this series, you want to definitely go back to some of the previous chapters in this, which are in the playlist, that are going to detail things like the character creation, the story of where this is taking place, and our session 0, frankly, where we set expectations for the game. What we're doing tonight is we're coming to the first session of play, which will be divided into individual chapters. And from there, we'll go and see what happens. But definitely go back and look at some of the earlier material. Another thing that we want to put out there is that we are playing the open beta 1.5 Daggerheart, which is now closed. You can no longer get the open beta. We still have the materials. The game is now in pre-order. So just to contextualize for when you're watching this, we will likely make mistakes, but we are all, interested in learning the game through failure. We want to fumble our way through this, and then when the new game comes out, we're going to have a solid understanding of how this game functions, hopefully. So that's the plan. So if you have feedback for us when you're watching this, put it in the comments. We're going to mess this up, but we're really trying to learn this game, in a nutshell. So, without further ado, should we do a brief introduction of the characters just for anybody who needs a little refresher?
I think we shall.
So, Garrett, you want to start us?
Sure. All right. Tonight, I'm going to be playing Barnacle. He is a underborn ribbit rogue. Kind of shady dealings, wearing a cloak, hooded cloak. Very shadowy figure. Maybe does a little dealing drugs, a little stuff on the side, sticky finger business. Yeah.
Nice.
Let's see how it goes.
Nice.
Beautiful. All right, Garrett playing Barnacle. I am Rich playing Aster Crumb. Aster Crumb is a half-orc, half-human wizard, and he has reddish, burgundy-tinted skin with stark blue eyes and red like slicked back hair, very professional. He wears a long brown overcoat to kind of like conceal himself. He's not one to kind of be boastful or anything. And yeah, he is a doctor.
I am Nathan. I'm playing Knockring tonight, an underborn Inferis Seraph. He wears mostly black leather with spikes sticking out from like his elbows and shoulders and knees. He's very slim, but built, and his eyes sort of dance into different colors like red and blue and yellow and brown. Even as you look, it's constantly changing. He's an interesting dude. He comes from a very secretive society with a very dark secret, and he's just trying to live a better life under his newfound goddess, Luxoria.
So I'm going to start off with where you are. Now, in the earlier chapters, we sort of touched on how you all know each other. So we have established that already, although don't be afraid to sort of inject that into the story as we go. The party is currently in the courthouse in the center of Amakora. Yeah. You have been hauled before the magistrate for a violation of dealing drugs, specifically in this case a drug called fleece, on the streets of Amakora. Before you, in line to see the magistrate, is another well-known gentleman in the city of Amakora, and his name is Valen Darludin. Valen is up before the magistrate for he's been accused of causing the explosion in his lab that destroyed 3 Amakora buildings, his own and the 2 neighboring buildings. So the magistrate, the esteemed magistrate Fenlith, is sort of berating Valen Darludin at this moment about the charge. Valen pleads with the magistrate and basically says, there was not enough of the materials that I work with in my shop to cause such an explosion. I believe that I've been framed for this crime, and I know I can get to the bottom of it. And I beg you, as a good citizen of Amakora who has no criminal record whatsoever and has only done good for this city, I beg you to give me some kind of amount of time to get to the bottom of what is going on here. I already have some people I am suspicious of. I need to do a little investigating, and so my plea for you, esteemed Fenlith, is to allow me that time. The judge sits back in his chair, leafs through a couple of papers on his desk, checks the record of Valen Darluden, and leans forward and says, "That's a fair request, given your reputation in the city. So I will say that I'm going to give you 30 days to solve this problem that you say you have. And at the end of 30 days, if you do not have considerable proof for me or have the arrest of somebody responsible for this, you must report back to this courthouse in 30 days' time, at which point you will be issued a fine of 50,000 gold pieces, and you're going to spend 6 months in jail. You've dealt considerable damage to property, and it needs to be accounted for. On top of that, there were 2 clanks that were killed in the explosion, and the owner of those clanks is looking to recover the money for the cost of those things. So we're going to tally all of the damages for this, which you will pay in 30 days' time. Am I clear?" And Valen Darluden nods and gives a very solemn thanks to the judge. And the judge, magistrate, raps the desk with the gavel, and Valen Darluden walks out of the courthouse, walks past you. You notice that he takes a little bit of a look at you, and then walks towards the back of the courtroom. At which point, the magistrate looks down and he says, "The next case on the docket will be, I have a Barnacle, an Ashter, Crumb, and a Knockrum charged with the selling and possession of a controlled substance in the city of Amakora. Step forward, please."
Not guilty.
So as you step forward, he sort of addresses the charges for you and says that there is, a significant fine that goes with this, and he'd like to ask for your side of the story. So I'd like you to talk amongst yourselves and decide how you wish to tell this magistrate what it is you've done.
So,
As maybe I could speak as someone with, some regal standing in this city.
yeah, that would be wise.
Sure.
Sir, Fenlith, magistrate, thank you for taking your time out of your busy schedule to see our case.
Indeed.
As you see, I am aware of the wrongdoings of this group, and I'm very apologetic for what has happened. But as you can see, these circumstances were dire. I'm a doctor in this city, and I am a student of Fleece. And you see, someone needed my medical attention in that direct moment, and I didn't have any legally on me at the moment. My apologies.
Well, what do the rest of you have to say for this? You were selling, you were buying. I'm not sure what you were doing. Why are you here?
I'm just his friend. I'm new to the area. I don't really know what's going on.
I was showing him around the city.
Well, he's been charged as just being with the party when this dealing went down, so you, by default, are part of this charge.
Understood.
What do you have to say for yourself?
Not much. Wrong place, wrong time.
So you don't deny that you were selling this?
No.
Well, fair enough. I will say this. Why don't you do me a favor and roll a presence check for me?
Oh,
Presence
We'll
check.
roll right off the bat. We'll get a roll in early on.
Oh no! Not
I will say this about your roll for the presence check. You've admitted guilt. You've both basically said you did what you did. Your presence check is going to be how well you impact the magistrate and the deciding fine. So either way, you're being charged with this, but your check will decide how it goes for you.
Oh, man.
They also roll
come
presence for
on.
innocent bystander.
I'm going to allow one presence check.
That.
All right, for my strange patterns, which is basically if I land this number on the D12, I get to either get a hope or clear a stress. So I'm going to pick 12.
You're going to pick 12 as the total number.
Actually, I'm going to pick 1. If I roll a 1, I could do either of those things, no matter the dice I roll it on.
Oh, I see. So it has to just come up on one of the two 12s.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It doesn't affect whether I succeed or not.
Do you know which die is hope and fear?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Making sure.
I have 18 fear.
18 fear.
Oh.
Rather than take a fear, I'm going to exercise my option to just change the narrative in the direction of that. But you did succeed. So, the judge looks sternly at you and he says, you know, as a doctor in a city as technologically advanced as Amakora is in this day and age, you should completely understand that dealings like this are unacceptable in a civilized society. It's why we have these rules. In order to maintain some kind of upstanding status as a doctor in this city, you need to abide by those. You can't be hauled before a court in front of all these people with the reputation that you have for a charge like this. Do you understand?
I do, Your Honor.
Now that being said, I'll take a bit of leniency on you, but I will sort of give it a condition. I will charge 1 bag of gold fine for this, when normally the fine is 2, and service. I will reduce the sentence to 1 bag of gold. However, if I catch you doing this again, if you land in my courtroom for this again, I will see that your license is suspended to practice what you practice. Am I clear?
Thank you, Your Honor. Can I make something clear before we proceed?
Please do.
Somebody's life was saved because I did this.
Listen, I understand that in the moment it feels like the right thing to do. My job is to look out for the greater community, not necessarily the individual. But I do appreciate your service to the city. Case closed. We're moving on. And he slams the gavel down on the desk.
Your Honor.
Maybe the regulations on the legal stuff should be loosened up a little bit.
Did you say that out loud?
Whispered.
Whispered?
Whispered.
Okay.
He might have caught a little bit of it. I don't know.
Shut up, Barnacle.
As the three of you begin to exit away from the actual bench of the magistrate and you start to walk back, one of the courtroom bailiffs approaches you with a slate and some stuff to fill out and says you can pay the bag of gold on your way out. There's a desk right through those doors. You will not be allowed to leave the courthouse until you've settled up. Just sign here for me and you can be on your way.
Okay. Nice.
That's like, I mean, I'll chip in some.
Half and half.
Half and half.
Barnacle.
What about this guy?
I wasn't selling.
Bystander. Shouldn't have even been there. I'm so sorry.
How am I going to pay my dues?
It's alright. Won't be here for long.
Hey, are we step out into like some form of privacy in the hallway?
Yeah, so as you're exiting the courtroom and you're coming out into the hallway of the courthouse, you now are sort of away from the whole crowd.
I'm gonna come in. Can I have one moment with Barnacle?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll
gonna
stand
take
off
you
to the side
aside.
mysteriously.
And I'm not really a confrontational person, but I'm gonna kind of like stand next to you in a sense, not in front of you, but next to you, Barnacle. I can't be seen with you.
Can't be seen with me. Why?
Why do you think my reputation is in the gutter now?
He just said don't do it again.
All these people in this courtroom saw what happened, Barnacle. Trying to make a life for myself, trying to do the right thing in this city. You're making me look bad.
You came to me.
Just had to say what had to be said. So don't be surprised if I don't come around as often. Now I'm going to walk back.
Okay. You pay your bag of gold at the receptionist's desk where you hand in this slate that you've signed. She passes you off a parchment receipt for the bag of gold, which you pocket. And then you begin to make your way outside the courthouse. You barely step out onto the front steps, and there are several large stone columns on the front of the courthouse. And from around the column, you see Valen Darluden step out as he notices you coming out of the courthouse, and he approaches all of you. Good day.
Good day, Mr. Darluden.
Oh, you remember my name?
I'm astute.
Yes. It's a cool name.
I got a feel. I stood in the back of the courthouse and watched the three of you present your case to the magistrate, and was wondering if I thought maybe you'd be suited for some work, seeing as you just incurred a penalty, and I can pay well.
Yes.
I'm sure you heard yes, just like that. You're like, yeah, give it to me.
Can you give us details on this work?
I can. I have a bit to fill you in on. I can pay you the equivalent of 5 bags of gold for some information, if you're able to acquire it for me.
Yes.
As you probably heard, I need to get the magistrate and this situation with me cleared up, and I assure you that I am innocent in this situation. Frustrated nonetheless. Would you care to maybe get something to drink, and we can sit down and talk about this?
Let's do that.
Fantastic. So, you and Valen Darluden down the steps of the courthouse into the street, and you make your way through the center section of the city, where a lot of the larger administration buildings are for the seat of government, and you move westward into the area of the city where the buildings and architecture become much tighter and smaller. It's the older section of the city. This section of the city was sort of where it all began, with Amakora as a port town and a fishing city. So the buildings are much more quaint and modest and small. And then, of course, as the economy grew out and the city grew eastward, the buildings became larger as the economy grew. All right, so you guys make your way into this area of the older part of town. And there's a tavern there you're actually all familiar with. It's called the Filthy Whip. And you head inside the Filthy Whip, which is a fairly small fishing establishment. Behind the bar is a clank, this robotic figure who, one of the things we need to discuss about the clank population in Amakora, which we sort of went over a little bit in the description of the city, but is the clanks in this city are of a variety of styles and advancements. Even though this technology has not been around for centuries, it's relatively new. The various trades and shipments that come into Amakora offer a lot of different materials with which a lot of the different artificers and tinkerers and craftspeople can work with to help enhance and build their creations. On top of that, you seem to have a division of 2 types of clank in the city. One is powered primarily by arcanic means. They have some kind of internal system that is powered by magic. The other is one that is more about valves and steam power. So they have some kind of combustion system inside them that heats steam and allows them. So they're much more audible when you encounter them on the street. They actually have like the sounds of valves opening and closing and the gentle release of steam, and there's a click sound to them. Whereas the ones that are more arcane powered are much more smooth and lithe and much more human-like in a weird kind of way.
Yeah.
Now the bartender at the Filthy Whip is of the steam-powered variety. And so as he clanks around behind the bar, pulling beers, you can hear the various releases of valves and clatters of different types of, vents opening and closing on his apparatus. He spins around as he hears the door open and he sees you walk in, and he just kind of makes an outward gesture with his arm towards one of the tables to signal to you guys to have a seat. So Valen kind of orders around, and he sits down and he begins to tell you his story. He's like, okay, long and the short of it, do you know what I do?
No.
I've heard your name reputably throughout town.
I'm a bit of an alchemist, for lack of a better term. I think that's a bit of a crude term for what I do, but as of late, I've been working on a substance that can ignite, burn rapidly, and ultimately, in the right circumstances, explode.
Like your factory.
Sore subject, but yes, like my factory.
Yes.
Now, it's not really a factory, it's more of a shop, studio, study, lab. Well, it's more of a lab. And I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, some of the things I share with you today, I'd prefer if they were kept to yourselves.
Absolutely.
A lot of it is already out in the open for some people, but if I could have your confidence, it would be appreciated.
Yes, absolutely.
My lab in the city of Amakora is mostly a front. Now, I do in fact make the substance that I told you I make, but my true lab is hidden. So when this building exploded, taking out the 2 surrounding buildings around it, with the ferocity that it exploded with, I knew that couldn't happen, because my Magnus powder that I use, there was hardly any there. There might have been enough there to create a small fire, but certainly not an explosion. This piqued my suspicions that I had been set up. Long story short, I have 2 primary suspects that I think could be involved here. There's a third. I'm not sure that's worth mentioning, but I'm going to look into the third myself, just because it's somebody that's a little easier for me to access. But let's talk about the other 2, because what I want you 2 to do, if you can, if I get near either of these people, I'm not going to get answers. They know who I am. We have other dealings. I need somebody who doesn't know who these people are. You're going to need to be discreet in the way you ask your questions, but I'll leave that up to you. If you get the information for me, you get the money. If you don't, I'm still going to be working it from my end.
Did you say the 2 of us?
What's that?
You said you 2.
I meant to the 2 suspects.
Believe me, I'm quite capable in interrogations.
Well, that's good. Because neither of these people are going to be easy to deal with.
That's fine.
Could I have their names?
I will give you both of their names. I don't have a particular order that I think you should visit these people in, but I will tell you that one's annoying and one's dangerous.
They mostly are.
If we kill him, would that be bad?
No, I don't think that would necessarily be bad. As a matter of fact, one of them I'd welcome dying, but
No one will be dying.
I need someone to present to this magistrate. If you bring me a dead body, that's useless. You won't have proof. Although, if you can get substantial proof, and they should happen to perish along the way, well, it is what it is.
No killing.
No killing.
Try not to.
Obviously.
Have you heard of a well-known gentleman associated with a crime ring in the city named Maddox the Suit?
How's that spelled?
Maddox, Maddox the Suit.
Can I roll a history check?
What's your instinct? What's your knowledge? Give me your knowledge score.
My knowledge is +3.
+3. I'm going to say that you would have heard of Maddox the Suit.
And I get advantage on recalling information.
Okay, so yeah, I mean this guy is a notorious crime boss in the city. He actually keeps an office, he keeps a headquarters in the very area that you guys are in, of the section of town. So, yeah, I would say you probably know him. Anyway, Valen tells you that Maddox the Suit has been looking to do business with him for quite some time. Maddox is looking to get 100 pounds of this Magnus powder as he calls it, a sample. That is not a sample. That is enough to blow up the entire city. And to be totally honest, I don't even have 100 pounds of this material, but this guy's trying to muscle me because he supposedly has some very important buyer that's interested in finding out about it. He's visited me on no fewer than 3 occasions, and it's really hard to get away from this guy. I feel like the pressure that he's applying to me would make him a perfect candidate to try and send a message, for lack of a better word. So
you do not want dealings with Maddox the suit.
it's not that I don't want dealings with him necessarily. It's more that I feel like there's probably a real danger in doing business with him.
Is that the one that can die?
Maddox the suit? If you're known, if you're caught taking this guy out, there's going to be a price on your head that few people will be able to protect you with. So, I don't know. If you feel the need to kill him, look, I'm not going to stop you. I'm not going to stop you from killing him.
We're not going to kill him.
You're going to have to figure out how we get this guy. Like, if you can get him to admit it, and then you leave with that knowledge, then we know that we can try to find a way to get him in, or muscle him into doing this, or cutting a deal with him that he gets me off the hook for this. Something. If, maybe you can work that out amongst yourselves. You seem to be a fairly capable group.
Is there any reason why he would want 100 pounds of this Magnus powder? I know you said it's enough to blow up the city, but does he have anything against the city?
No, I think Maddox thrives on this city. So I think that doing something like that, I don't know, it would be foolish. I can't see that being his intent. He's got a lot of business in this city. I think if he were going to wreak havoc on it, it would really hurt him. I think he's looking to make a deal. I think he's looking to sell this material.
Understood.
Is there any sort of insight check I can make?
Yes, you could make an insight check.
I want to do that.
You would. Well, you have your instinct.
Yeah.
So you could roll a check with your instinct modifier.
Okay.
What are you trying to ascertain by making this check before you tell me the number?
I'm trying to ascertain whether Valen seems as though he's gaining something he's not expressing to us from this. Do I think we are just taking out one of his competitors for him? Because the fact that he mentioned dealings with this man and whatnot, I don't completely trust that he's not willing to exploit some illegal business. And I want to see whether we're doing him a favor just to hire his standing as far as like illegal kingpin in the city.
Okay, well, you would know that Valen is not an illegal kingpin in the city in the first place. Valen is more of a well-known alchemist who seems to err on the side of good.
Okay.
But you could certainly do the insight check to see if there is something amiss in how that reads.
Yeah,
What did you roll?
I got a 11 with hope.
An 11 with hope. Well, first of all, you can mark the hope. And I'm going to say that as you sort of study Valen's his affect and his mannerisms as he's speaking, you're noticing a little frustration in the situation for him. You're also noticing that he seems to have an earnestness about him, right? There is a tone to his voice when he talks about Maddox the suit that is both fearful as well as irritable over the situation he's found himself in. He doesn't sound like he has an anger about him in regards to Maddox. And so you kind of come across from this feeling like he's telling you the truth.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Thank you. So we have Maddox, who is the second
But
suspect.
first, do you have any idea where he might usually be found?
Well,
Or he could be anywhere?
if you're fortunate enough to run into him in the city when he's out and about, number one, that's rare. Number two, he's going to be with a fairly large group of people that sort of tend to travel with him. He does have an outpost, a headquarters, so to speak, about 4 blocks from here, actually. If you head west and then 2 blocks to the south, you will notice that there's a block with some fishmongers, basically storefronts. They're not like the open air markets, they're actually fish storefronts. And nestled between 2 of them is a nondescript building with a front door. There's usually a couple of really not so desirable people hanging out outside the door. So that's his location.
Thank you.
You can find him there.
Thank you.
Okay.
So, second suspect. This one, I'll leave to you how you decide what you actually do with him, because I'm not gonna lie, seeing this guy vanish wouldn't bother me one bit.
That's where we could go.
This one is my wife's ex-lover.
Oh, yes.
Of course, she hasn't taken a lover since we've been married, but this was the gentleman that she was involved with before we met. His name is Galen Shorn. Now, Galen's an activist. Have you heard of the movement Sentience First?
No.
Is that that's the pro magic clank, or no?
It's the pro-clank movement.
Pro-clank in general?
Yeah, for clank sentience. It's rights for clank sentience. So the SFM, they're, look, I don't care either way about this. I really don't have an opinion on it. I mean, if I had to tap into my scientific mind, I'd say there isn't real sentience here. There's a really good convincing argument for it, but it's not real. And I think the argument that's being made here is really out of some people that aren't really thinking about what's going on. Anyway, this whole thing about clanks being humans and, this whole movement has got me in a bad spot, and several other tinkerers, artificers, people that sort of deal with clanks or own clanks to help in their service. We're seen as monsters, especially the ones that actually design and make these clanks, because the SFM people look at them as creating a life form and then tossing it to the side when it's either no longer useful or they need the parts for something else, because this is how it goes, right? You make a thing, you're short on parts, you need parts for a thing, so you take apart an old thing. This has infuriated some of them. And I'm not gonna lie, Galen Shorn is also pissed that I married his ex. He's pissed because Celeste is a wildborn. She's of the woodland, and she's kind of turned into a city girl. She met me, someone who is very focused on science. I'm not really a person of the woodland. He's convinced that I have somehow brainwashed her into being my wife. So he's not happy about that either. I would not be a bit surprised if he thought I was in that building when he blew it up.
And clanks were in that building, correct?
Clanks were outside that building. So there were 2 clanks passing by, from what the reports said, that were blown apart.
But there were no clanks working in your establishment.
Not in that shop.
Not in that shop. So it's presumable that he would have thought that no clanks would be directly killed.
I don't let anybody into my shop, but they all know that is my shop because they see me come and go.
Right.
So I think the assumption, and I'm making, a guess here, but I think the assumption is that everything I do is done behind those closed doors.
Right.
They've also probably seen me with my clank assistants in town, so they assume that they're there as well. And when the bodies of these 2 clanks were blown to pieces right outside, they probably thought they were mine. They were actually not mine.
Okay.
So
were there rallies by these activists about these clanks who lost their life?
Not that I know of, although I do know that them losing their lives has fueled their anger even more. So
Towards you?
Towards me and towards the clank building community at large.
And has Galen Shorn specifically spoke up about this event?
Galen Shorn and I stay far apart from one another. He knows that I think frankly he's genuinely afraid to be in my presence. I don't know why, but I'm not sure what I would actually do to him. I mean, I'm not exactly a fighting man.
Understood. And
although I do possess some nice toys.
I apologize. You said he's just a part of this movement, or does he have some sort of leadership position?
I believe he's just a part of the movement. I know that is a large organization. I don't believe he plays any large role, but I do know that he is always making the argument for this, and I think he's out to impress whenever he can.
Okay.
Where do you think we might find this Galen Shorn?
Galen Shorn tends to hang out over in the Guild District. Now that's on the eastern side of town. I'm sure you know where that is.
Yes.
He is, so the SFM has a headquarters over there, so he can be found over in that region. That's a little further away.
Say we either find him there or we find him if there's a rally or something. Sure, we'll find him there as well if we're looking for him.
Well, does anybody else have any questions about Galen Shorn?
Should we get maybe a brief description of these two people?
Yes, that would be helpful.
Well, Maddox's suit, if you've seen him, you know him. He's always wearing a sort of either a black or a royal purple suit coat, a waistcoat of sorts, with usually a very crisp white pressed shirt underneath, ruffles on the front, chest sticking out, although he is a rather portly and rotund man. Sports a beard, balding in the center, wears a ring on each pinky, and is usually walking with no fewer than 6 of his bandit thugs.
So he has a posse. That's annoying.
Now, a bit of advice to you. He's always looking for a deal. He's always looking for a way to make money. He's dangerous. But it's possible that you could get an audience with him if he thought he had something to gain. Just my advice.
Okay. Now about Galen?
Oh, what's his description?
Yes, please.
So first of all, I don't think the man eats. He is lanky and skinny and oftentimes is wearing no shirt around town, although his trousers are rather nice. Rib cage usually shows, has an obnoxious odor about the man. His beard is sort of clumped into a series of clumped masses. There's, I swear to God, twigs and moss growing in it.
Did he look this way when he was with your wife?
Yeah, he's sort of like one of these druid types from outside the city.
Unsavory.
I can't get within 10 feet of the guy.
Interesting.
Well, thank you for your objective description.
Is this one always like this?
We just met.
Sort of.
They're new to town.
Fair enough.
Just out of curiosity, this lab, where is it?
Which lab?
The lab that blew up.
The lab that blew up.
Yes, please.
Over in the Tinker's Quarters. So
Okay.
that is in the northern section of town. You should know. You would know where this is. So what happens with the city? If you, I can put a city map up on the screen for when I edit this, so that everybody can see it. But I can also show you where that would be on this map.
Oh, sick.
Ooh.
So this is the overall general city of Amakora. And to the west, over here, you'll notice that all of the architecture gets a little tighter as the city gets older in general. As you move towards the center, the buildings get a little bit larger and become a little bit more stately. Where the Tinkerers hang out is this more erratic section of town up here to the north. You notice that the roads have no rhyme or reason. The buildings are hexagonal and triangular, and they're sort of this ragtag, where am I pointing here? Right up in here. This ragtag group of huts and labs, and it's actually really quite amazing. There are smokestacks that stick up on crooked angles from the tops of building as smoke bellows out from furnaces and forges. You'll hear the sounds of hammers in the forges. You will hear the clank and the sort of ringing of gears as they spin. Interesting place.
Yes. And what are your typical work hours?
My typical work hours.
Yeah, in this lab.
In the lab that blew up.
The lab that blew up, yes.
I mean, I work as often as I can, sometimes late into the night.
Okay.
The lab did blow up after midnight.
Okay, blew up. And every day of the week you work there, or worked?
I'm a busy man. I don't have, other than my wife is relatively new. We were married a year ago, and I am sort of now required to be home a little bit more often. So I've been trying to take hours when I can after Celeste is in bed.
Okay.
Do you research fleece in this lab?
I know of fleece. I don't necessarily research it. What did you want to know?
As far as production of said fleece, are they moving away from ribbits and back to its original source?
That's one that's probably kept under wraps. I could find out if you'd like me to.
You ever tried it?
As a matter of fact, I have not. First time I've heard you speak in this meeting.
I spoke a couple of times.
Oh.
I asked if I could kill him.
Oh, that's true.
Yes,
You
that's
did,
true.
didn't you? I like you. You have access to materials and things like that? Are you a possible resource for me?
Maybe.
I'm always looking to widen my circle of potential resources if you're able to get things that might not necessarily be traded on the open market day to day. No need to answer now.
Just a couple more questions. You said it blew up after midnight, and on which date was this?
It would have been 2 weeks ago today.
Okay. And what were you doing during that time?
I was in my actual lab.
Your actual lab? And you wouldn't be willing to disclose that location?
Let's just say that if it is necessary for you to know that location for whatever reason during your investigation, and I have grown to trust you and your whereabouts, you might become privy to that. But for now, we're just getting acquainted.
And is there anybody who at all might be able to vouch for your whereabouts?
That's funny. I thought I was hiring you to investigate for me. It seems like
Yes.
you're investigating me now.
I am, but I'm sure you want a thorough job done, and once I'm sure that you weren't involved in this, I can be sure of my deductions about these other two.
I assure you there are no fewer than 10 people that would be able to vouch for my whereabouts in my other lab, in my location, because I share it with a number of other people that were all with me when this went down.
Okay. So in other words, nobody trustworthy. Okay.
God damn.
Well,
Well, it sounds like I'm dealing with some pretty savvy investigators.
I would hope to think so. I don't see anything else I need to ask.
How about we do this? I'll meet you in 3 days' time, back here at the Filthy Whip. Does that seem fair? Just in case you're unable to contact me or find me. If you do... If you should need me... there is a section of sort of fishermen's huts down where the lower south seawall extends out off of the city. Do you know where it is?
I believe so.
There's a few fishermen's huts right before you go out onto the seawall. There's a gentleman there at a rental shop. He rents equipment for going underwater, so to speak. Tell him you're looking for me, and tell him that we have a special arrangement. Use those words exactly. We have a special arrangement. He will be able to contact me, and I'll be able to meet you within 1 hour of your request.
Understood.
Thank you, Mr. Northern.
I appreciate your efforts. I think this will be most productive and profitable for you if you come through with some information.
Yes.
Once we glean what we can, we'll decide how we move forward and bring this to the magistrate.
Now, you as a influential man of the city, would you speak kindly on my behalf to the Doctors Guild of the city in my aiding?
I know a few people there. I think I could make that arrangement for you.
Thank you.
Let's see how it
What
goes.
has happened.
I get a good sense from you off the bat, so let's develop a relationship, and we'll see how that goes.
Thank you.
I have a reputation to protect myself, and I understand where you're coming from. All right. Valen reaches down into a small pouch on his side, pulls out several gold pieces, tosses them up onto the bar to the clank that's behind the bar, who kind of gives a jittered nod to him in thanks as he pays for the round of beers that you drank. And he stands up and he's like, well, 3 days. You know where to find me if you need to. I have to be going. I appreciate this. I'll talk to you soon.
Have a good day.
And he exits the bar.
Well, I think first and foremost, Galen would be easy to
Yes.
investigate. I think if he was responsible, he would feel immense guilt for having killed 2 clanks.
Agreed.
Though I think it's unlikely, seeing as this fellow has clanks. I don't think Galen would be inclined to commit violence against clanks.
I don't either.
I don't think Galen is likely, and I think surely he's jealous. I mean, come on, their names are so similar. Right?
Galen and Valen.
Galen and Valen?
We check on Galen, and then we check on Maddox,
Yes,
and
I
then
think so.
we check the lab. It exploded.
Yes. How? Maybe we check the lab first and see what we think. Get some...
If we go to the other places first, we may see recognizable things that may,
Right,
trigger a memory response as to maybe who was there.
sure.
Maybe a sigil from Maddox the Suits gang or something. So maybe it might just be best to go there first, so we know what we're looking for.
The
When we
lab?
Get to the go to see them first before we get to the lab, so we can possibly recognize these things while we're there.
I don't quite understand what you're proposing.
Proposing we go to Galen first,
Yes.
then Maddox, and then the lab.
Yes. I disagree. I think we should approach the lab first, investigate how we can, get some knowledge of the area so we know the specifics in case.
What if it? He didn't take kindly to you suspecting him right off the bat.
It's not
Don't
that I
you think it would be
suspect him, I
suspicious if we get
think-
caught going there first?
I am thorough in my job. Believe me, I've had to do these investigations before. And I think I made that clear. I don't think there's any amount of suspicion for us to want to become familiarized with the scene of the crime. I think we should know what we're talking about, see with our own eyes the aftermath, and then request for specific details from the
risky.
suspects.
I don't hate it. Oh, what a day.
Asher, can I join you
With what?
this investigation?
Thank you for asking.
I think my set of skills and some of the underbelly dealings in town might be useful.
I'm sure you have interactions and connects within Maddox's gang.
Maybe not necessarily, but
You would know
a way in.
Fine, Barnacle. Fine. But once I get my reputation fixed, what I said stands.
I think your reputation is not dependent on his actions, but your own.
You are who you associate yourself with.
Not if you're strong of will.
Interesting. I think either way,
Maybe we all can turn a page.
maybe. I think we're a team for the foreseeable future. Going to have to call out of work.
Okay, so the party spends another 10 minutes getting filthy wind, finishing their drinks. At which point you finish and head out the door. Now, it's a decent distance from where you are across the city of, or north across the city of Amakora to the Tinkerer's District. But it's not long before you actually set foot inside an area of tight cobblestone twisting and turning streets that you could see how any newcomer into the city, and frankly, Nakram, you're like a little confused by this. You're like looking around and saying, wow, this is really quite complex. The buildings are all sort of, from a geometric standpoint, they are all haphazard. They really don't have any rhyme or reason. You'll have buildings that have 3 sides, 5 sides, areas jutting out. They look like they have been built in a very sort of, slipshod, kind of quick way. They sometimes have crooked walls. At the top, you'll see these large chimneys that stick out. Some buildings have like 5 and 6 and 8 chimneys sticking off of them as, smoke pours out. Soot covers the street in these areas. And you will notice that there are occasionally, outside of some of these buildings, piles of debris, metallic debris, gears and valves and different types of pistons, parts of machines that have sort of just been thrown out in a pile because the buildings themselves look small. So if these were tinkerers' workshops, they would not have a lot of room to store junk inside. You meander the streets. All the sounds have now changed. What was once a fish market that you were in 15 minutes ago has turned into what sounds like some kind of semi-futuristic, occasional machine, occasional forge bellows, occasional release of steam out of a valve out of the side of a building. It's quieter here in terms of voices. It seems like it's a much more studied and focused area, even if there is a larger din of mechanical stuff going on. The streets are also illuminated with lanterns. As you're sort of getting on in the day a little bit and you're at dusk, the lanterns have a bluish glow to them. What did I say?
Are there any rusty bolts on the ground as I walk?
Absolutely.
I'm just gonna pick one up and pocket it.
Picks up and pockets a rusty bolt.
Yes.
Did you want something that was of a decent size?
No, not too big.
Just a rusty bolt?
Yeah, just
All
a
right.
rusty bolt.
That's easy enough to find.
Can I ask why, my friend?
Fashion.
Fashion.
Well, look at my spikes. I could add some rusted things to it. Wouldn't that be fun?
Very cool. Very cool.
I appreciate this.
As someone, you can kind of tell by his get-up that he doesn't do a lot of fashion.
Right.
It's mainly functional, but he respects your pizzazz.
Yeah, I sort of give you like as I'm thanking you.
Yeah.
But in a judgmental way.
Perfect.
Maybe you would like to.
Maybe I would. Maybe I don't know. That could be your realm.
I can show
You want to help me?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can make it your own.
There we go. A fortuitous friendship.
Yes. Yes, it is. Always has been.
Yes. I heal you and you make me work.
Yes.
So I think what we're going to do here is we're going to close out chapter 1 as we sort of close the scene of you all talking to Valen Darlutin, accepting the position of investigating for him to the tune of 5 bags of gold. And we're going to open our next chapter with you beginning this investigation. Maybe each chapter is one of those locations, depending on how this goes. But I like this in chunks. So stay tuned. We're going to have the next chapter right after this. Talk to you soon.